cold seltzers, ciders, canned cocktails, and more. Details at specs.com. Cheers to savings.
Over 5 hours now, 18-wheeler fire cleanup. Southwest Freeway inbound 69 Bel Air. Just a couple of left lanes open. That is it. Been that way all morning. Back it up outside the belt. 90 is your best bet to get around that service road heavy as well as you can imagine. Also, over on 10 westbound 6, they cleared a wreck. 93 for the high. It's going to feel like 102 with more sunshine, upper 70s for the low tonight. 93 for the next few days. Sunshine all weekend going into next week as well. Right now, 84 on the beach in Galveston. Right now, 79 here at the University of Houston. KUHF Houston News 88.7. It's a service of the University of Houston, 9 o'clock.
Houston City Council's approved a 5-year plan to upgrade, well, a lot of stuff. I'm Craig Cohen, today on Houston Matters, where the money would come from and what it would do.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, the Houston Rodeo's expanding and moving some future events to a new site. We'll learn more. Plus, sleep expert Dr. Sudha Tallavajhula returns to try to help you get a better night's rest. Send your questions about sleep and sleep disorders to talk@houstonmatters.org or call us at 713-440-8870. And we learn more about the new Texas Newsroom PBS Frontline podcast after the flood from participating Houston Public Media reporters Dominic Anthony Walsh and Sarah Grunau. We'll start with a news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. President Trump stunned Washington yesterday when he reversed course on signing bipartisan legislation to lower housing prices across the country. Trump canceled a bill signing ceremony for the measure, saying that his pet issue, an election bill, had to be first. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports.
It speaks to bigger issues about Trump's efforts to expand his executive power and political power, and the loyalty he expects from those he works with. That includes U.S. allies, who he has been frustrated with for not supporting him enough in the war on Iran.
I just want their loyalty. We don't need their money. We don't need anything. We have the most powerful military in the world by far. But I just want loyalty. You know, we're so loyal to them.
Political strategists say Trump is more focused on loyalty, including Republicans being loyal to him rather than having the necessary majorities who can pass his legislation. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio is touring Gulf Arab states to discuss an interim peace deal between the U.S. and Iran. NPR's Aya Batrawi reports Rubio is wrapping up his visit today with a summit of Gulf foreign ministers in Bahrain after stops in the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait.
Rubio says he's in the Gulf to thank Arab states for their, quote, incredible support throughout the war and to engage them about decisions going forward. Iran accused Gulf Arab states of allowing U.S. forces to launch attacks from their territory during the war. Iran targeted these countries with missiles and drones that hit bases, but also energy infrastructure, airports, and residential areas. Despite this, Rubio says the security partnership remains strong. The interim agreement with the U.S. focuses on curbing Iran's nuclear program. Its missile and drone capabilities are not part of the deal. Aya Batrawi, NPR News, Dubai.
Stocks on Wall Street opened higher today as the Commerce Department reported a jump in annual inflation. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose by about 350 points in early trading.
Consumer prices in May were up 4.1% from a year ago, according to the Commerce Department's inflation yardstick, which is closely watched by the Federal Reserve. Higher energy prices caused by the war with Iran are partly to blame. Investors are betting the central bank will have to raise interest rates later this year. The U.S. economy grew a bit faster in January, February, and March than had been reported. New figures from the Commerce Department show the nation's gross domestic product grew at an annual rate of 2.1% during the quarter, up from an earlier estimate of 1.6%. The change largely reflects a downward revision in imports, which count against GDP. Consumer spending during the quarter was also a bit weaker than had been reported. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
On Wall Street, the Dow was up 376 points. This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Eric and Wendy Schmidt. through the Schmidt Family Foundation, working toward a healthy, resilient, secure world for all. On the web at theschmidt.org. This is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. Houston ISD state-appointed Board of Managers are expected to vote on the 2026-2027 $2 billion budget proposal tonight. Superintendent Mike Miles had hoped to balance the budget this year, but recent drafts of the proposal show expenditures will exceed revenue by about $25 million. The district is bracing for the loss of $50 million in state funding due to enrollment declines. They hope to offset those losses by saving money from several school closures and cutting hundreds of jobs in the central office. Harris County commissioners are set to appoint a seasoned civil engineer as the next flood control director today. Our Sarah Grunau reports Marcus Stuckett previously worked at the flood control district for more than 6 years in various positions.
Stuckett is vice president of the local engineering firm Pape Dawson. The company has donated tens of thousands of dollars to some of the commissioners. Commissioner Adrian Garcia told Houston Public Media that without a look at a pool of qualified candidates, there's no way of knowing whether Stuckett stands out for the position. Commissioners are planning to make the appointment on Wednesday. Jim Blackburn is an environmental law professor at Rice University.
I mean, personally, if I were on the court, I'd want to take my time. I can understand that they may feel urgency.
Tina Peterson, the former flood control director, submitted her resignation letter just 2 weeks ago after facing pressure for delayed flood bond projects. I'm Sarah Grunau, News 88.7.
And it was a record for the University of Houston basketball team as 3 players were ultimately selected during the NBA draft.
With the 45th pick in the 2026 NBA draft, the Sacramento Kings select Emmanuel Sharp from the University of Houston.
The audio of NBA Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum is courtesy of ESPN. Sharp is the all-time leading three-point scorer for the Cougars. He joins an NBA draft class that includes 2 former teammates. The Houston Rockets only made 1 selection during the draft, trading up to the second round. I'm Matt Harab, News 88.7.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here on News 88.7 and Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Coming up this hour, the Rodeo expands your questions about sleep and sleep disorders, and we learn more about the Texas Newsroom project after the flood and the role Houston Public Media reporters are playing in it. First, though, Houston City Council approved a nearly $18 billion 5-year capital improvement plan Wednesday, which calls for both public and private funds to improve transportation, mobility, stormwater drainage, and more. Here to tell us more about it is Houston Chronicle reporter Ryan Nickerson. Ryan, good morning.
Hi, Craig. Thanks for having me.
Sure. This is basically a 5-year plan laying out what the city would like to do between fiscal years 2027 and 2031. What exactly does the plan actually cover? What sort of spending here?
Yeah, so a capital improvement plan is essentially what the city's infrastructure spending plan is through the next 5 years, as you just said. So every year, Houston updates the plan and lays out what it expects to fund. Like you said, water lines, wastewater plants, and streets, drainage, airports, libraries, and solid waste facilities. But the biggest takeaway this year is that most of the money isn't going to flashy new projects. It's going to basic infrastructure like water, wastewater, drainage, streets, and airports. And the angle I focus on in the story is on solid waste, because this is the first capital plan approved after city imposed a new trash fee and fundamentally changed how it funds the department.
Yeah, this plan calls for solid waste to get about $92 million across those 5 years. That would be a modest bump over the most recent budget. Also, it's despite the fact that residents will now pay a new monthly fee that makes up a part of the department's funding. How does the city explain the math?
Well, the city says that the new monthly trash fee is going to help stabilize the solid waste department. They haven't offered specific benchmarks on how that's going to happen. But they essentially say that it's going to help fund the department. It's going to help, improve services. But we just haven't yet seen that.
One of the reasons there may not be that much detail yet is that the fee is starting at $5 a month. But as was explained as they approved it, The idea is that down the road, whether that's year 2 or 3 or 5 or beyond, that number, that amount is going to go up. So I imagine part of the question here is, does the city know, or is there a plan in place for how and when those increases might occur?
Right. So we don't actually know if it will go up. At the moment, it's going to stay at $5 per month for this year and the next fiscal year. Beyond that, it's up to city council to approve of it. And so it's not set in stone that it's going to go up, but the plan is, up in the air. Is it could go up to as much as $25 per month, but we have to wait and see.
Yeah, and we should reinforce that that's the amount that it is roughly in the other major cities in Texas. Councilmember Alejandra Salinas got an amendment passed to accelerate trash truck purchases. What does that amendment do for the state of the city's fleet?
Yeah, so the amendment, it pretty much transferred a lot of the money that was going to spend on trucks in future years to this upcoming fiscal year. And it's going to essentially allow the city to purchase a lot more trucks. Hopefully it could speed up solid waste department, but we'll see. But yeah, the amendment passed, and so it was a kind of a win.
The plan also calls for money to improve drinking water and sewage. How much towards what projects there?
Yeah, so modest spending compared relatively. So I have a list of it. $790 million for street rehabilitation, $500 million for major thoroughfares. It did also, in terms of money for wastewater, about $8.6 billion combined.
Some of the funding in this plan would come from bonds that would be in the hands of voters. When might city residents see a bond election tied to this plan, and what might it improve?
Finance Director Melissa Dubowski told City Council on June 8th that we should expect to see a bond election within a year or so. So it probably won't happen in this November election cycle, but in the next year, maybe after that. And essentially, the city always passes bonds every couple of 4 or 5 years, and it essentially just helps pay for these future infrastructure projects.
Yeah, I guess the bottom line here, when you look at a plan like this, a document like this, $18 billion sounds like a lot, but it is over 5 years. Is this a hard budget? Is it a realistic projection, or is it more of a wish list?
Well, so the CIP is not a budget. It is more like a roadmap, if you will. The city passed its annual budget a few weeks ago. So if you're looking at the CIP, you should mostly be looking at the projects slated for fiscal year 27. Those are the ones that you should expect to see the city take action on. Beyond that, they could continue to push infrastructure projects down the line. It depends on the administration.
Okay, so it's initially, as you said, a roadmap projection for those future years. But yeah, a different administration comes in, those priorities can certainly change, and all that gets negotiated year to year, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's also depending on the council members' relationship with the administration as well. They can help push things up to more sooner years.
Ryan Nickerson is a reporter with the Houston Chronicle. Ryan, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
The Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo is making its largest ever facilities investment. The rodeo plans to build a $300 million agricultural complex along Highway 288. Rodeo officials insist this is an expansion and that there are no plans to leave NRG Park. Houston Public Media's Michael Adkison is here now with more. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Craig. Good morning.
What is the rodeo building exactly?
Yeah, so you mentioned it. It's 1 million square feet. It's a sort of year-round building that rodeo officials will be able to have complete access to without having to negotiate schedules with the Houston Texans or anyone else using NRG Stadium, and they'll be able to use it for essentially whatever they think fit. So it'll have an arena, it'll have barns, it'll have a good farm for cows to be on, so the way they can do these competitions, and it also has space for the auctions that happen at the rodeo.
Where along 288 is this going to be located? So
it's going to be off of Airport Boulevard, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. That's where their headquarters are. So this is a facility that they, have. This will be a facility that they have headquarters close by to. They're already in that location. This will just expand their operations from there.
The rodeo says, again, it's not leaving NRG Park, that this is an expansion, not a relocation. But horse shows, some livestock competitions, 4-H contests, archery, those are all slated to move to this new site. Does this mean rodeo attendees and competitors may have to plan to visit 2 locations in the future?
Yeah, so if you're a rodeo goer who's there for the concerts and the food and to see a couple cows and nothing more, this probably won't affect your rodeo experience. That will all still be at NRG Park. But if you're one of these ranchers or their family members or someone who's really just invested in watching this ranching lifestyle and the competitions that happen, this is going to put a little bit of a transition into how your rodeo experience goes. There will be shuttle services that go back and forth between this agriculture complex and the Houston Rodeo. That's not necessarily new because, as I mentioned, their headquarters are nearby. The rodeo currently uses it as a satellite lot. If you want to park there, a bus will take you to NRG Park. That's going to continue now with this new agriculture complex when that goes into use. There will be shuttle services that take folks back and forth between this complex and the stadium and NRG Park, which is about 3 miles away.
Will there be rodeo competitions at the rodeo then?
There will be certain competitions, all the horse races and such like that, as well as archery contests that happen will be there. But as far as, your run-of-the-mill, lassoing cattle and such like that, that you see at the Houston Rodeo proper, that is still going to be at NRG Stadium. That being said, one of the benefits to this agriculture complex, as the rodeo organization puts it, is that this is, again, something they can use year-round. So essentially they can do it for whatever they see fit. That arena has 5,000 seats, so if they want it for concerts, if they want it for events, if they want to just do essentially whatever they want because they have complete control over this, they can decide that.
Yeah, they're paying for this.
Yes,
right?
They are paying for this.
Yeah, NRG Arena, meanwhile, is where a lot of these events have taken place over the years. Rodeo CEO Chris Bowman has said it's near the end of its useful life. What does that mean exactly? And does the rodeo have any say in what does happen in that building?
So a little bit of context that Bowman shared with me when we spoke on the phone is that NRG Arena was built by the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo in the 1970s, and they gifted it to the county. And now the county, Harris County, has complete control over it. So they have essentially said, we are putting this in the hands of Harris County to decide what to do with NRG Arena. If they want to keep it and revamp it, we will work with that. If they want to get rid of it and replace it with something else, we will work with that as well. They don't plan to totally abandon the arena just yet. They just want to move it to what they do with the arena. They want to move those to a better facility, as they would put it, which is this new agriculture complex.
There has been over the years tension between the county and the rodeo. Is that behind some of this?
I put that exact question to Bowman when we spoke on the phone, given the context of what happened earlier this year with Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo and the controversy with the rodeo between the two of them. As they put it, that conflict had nothing to do with the development of this complex. This was a project that they've been working on since 2019, so many years now. That being said, as I've alluded to, one of the direct benefits of building this new complex is they don't have to deal with the county as much. Hidalgo referred to herself as their landlord when all this was going down back in March. They won't have such a landlord because they will be owning this and controlling it themselves.
And it certainly wouldn't be strictly about her, as she will be leaving office at the end of the year anyway.
Correct.
Right. The rodeo notes its centennial is in 2032 and that's a motivating factor. How does this complex fit into what is planned surrounding that milestone?
I think that one of the biggest ideas is just that they know the rodeo is going to be, as they would like for it to be, bigger and better than ever, and that this is going to help with that. The way that they see it is that this is also going to help with transportation and crowding. If you're at the rodeo on a peak day, you're shoulder to shoulder with everyone around you. The way that they see it is that this is going to draw so many people away from NRG Park at any given time during the day to go see the other competitions, to see an auction, to actually be involved with the ranching that happens over there, that it's not going to be as crowded at NRG Park, so they can hypothetically have even more people. So that's part of the vision, is just essentially a bigger and better rodeo by the centennial in 2032.
Groundbreaking's expected late this year. When could we expect these facilities to be open?
The facility, there's sort of two ways to answer that. When is it going to be open for those year-round operations? That's not immediately clear, but the intention is to have this used for the 2029 Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo.
Houston Public Media's Michael Adkison. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, maybe the most important public service we can provide to you and yours. We're going to try to help you get a better night's sleep. We welcome your questions for sleep expert Dr. Sudha Tallavajhula at talk@houstonmatters.org or 713-440-8870 as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
Hello, I'm Ernie Manous. Our show, Hello Houston, is...
You count on Houston Public Media. That's why you're here right now. Take the next step and become a new member today. Every gift makes a difference. And with a gift of $5 a month or more, you'll receive PBS Passport, a member benefit that lets you stream more of the shows you love anytime. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. Baylor's work centers on advancing health and medicine through research, education, and patient care.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro Now.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Of all the things we do on this show to provide a public service, there may be no more critical one than this. From time to time, we field your questions about sleep and sleep disorders. Our goal is to help you and yours get a better night's rest. After all, a well-rested Greater Houston is more productive, handles traffic better, has better health outcomes. The more of us that sleep consistently well, the better off we will all be. So whether you are wondering about the best ways to ensure to get the rest you need, have questions about how medication can benefit or harm your efforts to sleep, whether you or a loved one suffers from insomnia or sleep apnea or snores so loudly the walls shake, we are here to help. In that spirit, we welcome back MD and neurologist Dr. Sudha Tallavajhula, sleep expert from UT Health and Memorial Hermann Sleep Medicine Clinic. Dr. Tallavajhula, welcome back to Houston Matters.
Thank you for having me back, Craig.
And we welcome any and all questions you have about sleep and sleep disorders at 713-440-8870. You can reach out on to us, email talk@houstonmatters.org. You can also post your question on our live video stream on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Let's start with research. What's new in terms of research in connection with sleep these days?
This show somehow always lines with my return trip from the National Sleep Medicine Conference. So usually I'm busting with these new advances. There has been an explosion of what we call ambulatory sleep medicine technologies, and both UT and Memorial Hermann are trying to leverage these technologies to improve care because Houston is just so big. I mean, having ambulatory testing and therapies and access to telehealth makes it much easier for us to reach all corners of Houston.
What is ambulatory testing? What does this refer to?
So with ambulatory testing, I'm referring to sleep medicine technology, which takes a sleep test to the home, which means, yes, there are sleep labs across Houston. Memorial Hermann has several of those. But using ambulatory testing means that you actually take a sleep test home with you. Now, these are indicated primarily for treating conditions like, or diagnosing conditions like sleep apnea. They're really not very useful when it comes to some other conditions like narcolepsy. But sleep apnea being such a common condition and in-lab sleep testing being fairly expensive and resource intensive, things like these are really a boon to helping us expand our access. You could also really monitor a patient's sleep from home now with extended EEG, for example, which looks at brain waves. We've been using this technology to look at seizure conditions for a long time. So that has sort of evolved to looking more at sleep longitudinally. And in fact, now there are techniques to measure sleep over months. So we could go on about how how industry is leveraging this to look at other conditions. For example, there's research looking into how sleep can affect dementia, and we measure sleep to see how that would correlate with certain dementia metrics. We also look at ambulatory therapeutics. What that means is cognitive and behavioral therapy for insomnia, which is really the most sustainable way of treating insomnia, can now be imparted through telehealth, which means a psychologist can actually do virtual healthcare with you and over 6 to 8 sessions teach you how to fall asleep again. I mean, how wonderful is that?
Yeah. About a year or so ago, I used this app called Snore Lab. And I was curious what you think about apps like these. It's essentially a microphone. I mean, all it really does is get access to a microphone. It records long stretches while you're sleeping. It records and gives you a waveform, measures how often, when you snore, how often, and what the peaks look like. It's not necessarily diagnosing anything, but it gives a score based off of that. My score was very low. It was like one moment where it was one little snore, and that was it. So that was good. But, I was curious. What do you think about these kinds of apps? Are they useful? Are they effective? Is it a good alternative to going in for a full-fledged sleep study, or are you saying no? There are other. What we're talking about are things that are a little more advanced than that.
What we're talking about are more advanced than this. I wouldn't necessarily call these alternatives to traditional sleep testing. What I would call them overall in the general scheme of things, and there are apps at different levels of, different kinds of technologies, different levels of expertise at what they're supposed to be doing. But overall, I would call them alerting devices. For example, a patient yesterday came in with her spouse who had recorded her snoring over audio, and she had no idea she was doing it. So it alerted her to sleep apnea, whereas she may never have known that before. So something like this, even if done just for the sake of curiosity, may alert you to a sleep disorder that you never knew you had. So for that purpose, I think these are extremely useful. Whether they actually measure what they're supposed to measure is very hard to say, because many of them have proprietary algorithms which are sort of black box and not available for general scientific inquiry. But in all doing due diligence, you should definitely see a sleep medicine physician or your own physician and get a definite diagnosis before you jump to conclusions.
Right. What about new medications? Every time you join us, there's usually one or two new things on the market that are purported to help people sleep. I guess there are varying degrees of quality and dosage and all of that. What are you seeing out there these days?
Well, there is a whole new pipeline of medications coming in for narcolepsy, which is a condition of excessive sleepiness, which is actually way more common than people think it is. Unfortunately, for patients who have narcolepsy, most of the time they're perceived as just being either tired or depressed or lazy, or whereas they're just simply exhausted all the time, despite having adequate sleep and adequate quality of sleep. So in that respect, there is a new pipeline of medications coming in that's leveraging very foundational brain mechanisms. In terms of insomnia medications, there are a few that are relying seriously on previously known mechanisms, and the idea is not so much that they're more effective than previous medications, but usually with lesser side effects, and can be tailored, for example, to less of a fall risk in the elderly, which is one of the reasons why we were very afraid to use sleep medications in those prone to falls. So there are new panels of medications. There are new neuromodulation techniques and neurostimulation techniques for treatment of sleep apnea. These will probably get more and more prevalent. How they compare with traditional CPAP, as of yet, they're not just as effective. But for someone where, when I was treating sleep disorders like 10 years ago, it was either CPAP or nothing. That's not the same anymore. So there's a whole host of things that you can actually do about sleep disorders that we could not do before.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. We're discussing sleep and sleep disorders with sleep expert Dr. Sudha Tallavajhula. We welcome your questions and comments at 713-440-8870 or email talk@houstonmatters.org. Again, you can also post questions on our live video stream on our YouTube channel. We have an email from Jerry who says, I'm using over-the-counter Unisom to help me sleep. I cut the tablet in half. Is this safe for extended use?
Unisom is doxylamine. It is indicated for short-term insomnia use. The idea again being that over time people may get, what we call desensitization, or they develop tolerance to the medication. As far as adverse effects, it's relatively safe. I mean, that is why the over-the-counter, allocation in the first place. If you develop dry mouth or dizziness or anything, clearly you know that's an issue. Half of Unisom may not cause much of a problem, but while it can be used for short-term insomnia, maybe a couple of weeks, after some time it may become less effective, and in that case, absolutely reach out to your physician. In the meantime, it might be important to see what the exact problem with sleep is. Are you using it because you have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep? If you have trouble staying asleep, is there something that's waking you up from sleep? Are you having trouble falling asleep because you can't shut down? Is it time to seek techniques that help you to shut down your mind? Again, all of us suffer from, once in a while, stress-induced insomnia, whatever else that might be. But if it doesn't go away and it stays for longer than a few weeks and it enters the chronic insomnia realm, you kind of want to investigate a little bit more.
Joe writes, I'm a 69-year-old man in pretty good health. I try to get some exercise most days. I go to bed every night between 10 and 10:30, but inevitably wake up every morning between 3 and 3:30. I often toss and turn and have a difficult time getting back to sleep until about 4:30 or 5 a.m., and then I wake up tired by about 7. At 3 a.m., here it comes, I often turn on my phone and listen to the BBC. At other times, I try to avoid that temptation and turn on the sound of waves and water, white noise. Neither works very well for me. Do you have suggestions?
Well, a couple of suggestions there. The most common reasons for early morning awakenings, usually around 2 to 3, is either obstructive sleep apnea. So check with, use a snore app, check with your partner, bed partner, to see if you snore, if that's what's waking you up. Many people don't know that it's sleep apnea waking you up. If it is, then you really want to treat it because that might explain the daytime sleepiness. In fact, you will get more out of your exercise, whether it be weight loss or muscle building or whatever else you're looking for, if you sleep well. So look for what wakes you up. The other cause for early morning awakenings many times is actually anxiety or depression for that matter. And again, easily treated. As far as what do you do when you wake up, give yourself about 10 minutes. If you're not falling asleep, again, tossing and turning in bed and looking at the clock usually doesn't really help. If anything, it maximizes your anxiety. So we usually advise our patients to get out of bed, sit right next to your bed in a chair with a small light, and preferably read something extremely monotonous, something that would typically put you to sleep, and then go to bed only when you're ready to sleep again. Over time, your mind gets used to the idea that the bed is only a place for you to sleep in and do nothing else. If the problem persists even after you train your mind for maybe a week or two, absolutely seek attention.
Linda writes, I struggle with my CPAP machine. I've seen sleep apnea jaw devices that move your jaw forward online. Do they work?
They absolutely do. They work for mild sleep apnea and about 70 to 80% effective depending on what the sort of predisposing causes for sleep apnea are. For example, there are people who have what we call retrognathia, where moving the jaw forward will actually help with sleep apnea. For it still comes with side effects, and in many cases it might be jaw misalignment or temporomandibular joint, or what is typically called TMJ arthritis. So if that is a concern, then I would not look at the oral appliances. They do work. They're an option when CPAP doesn't work very well or people have trouble tolerating CPAP. Many times we actually start with questioning what the issue is with the CPAP. Is it that you don't have the right kind of mask? Do the pressure settings need to be adjusted? How many masks have you tried? There is one mask out there for every kind of face, and it's like finding the right fit for jeans, for example. I tell all my patients, you really want to find that right fit, and once you do that, typically people do manage it. But despite multiple trials, if you have failed CPAP, then yes, there are things that you can do, including oral appliances or what are technically called mandibular advancement devices.
We are fielding your questions about sleep and sleep disorders. My guest is Dr. Sudha Tallavajhula, sleep expert with UT Health and Memorial Hermann. We'll take more of your calls and emails at 713-440-8870 or talk@houstonmatters.org. Stick around as Houston Matters continues.
You live in a universe. It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
From listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. Baylor's work centers on advancing health and medicine through research, education, and patient care.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Discovery Green, presenting Kicks and Coffee, featuring pickup soccer games and skill exercises for all ages. Saturday mornings throughout the summer. More information at discoverygreen.com.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. We're discussing sleep and sleep disorders with area sleep specialist Dr. Sudha Tallavajhula at 713-440-8870 or talk@houstonmatters.org. Christine writes, literally the last 2 nights I haven't been able to sleep well. I was a chronic bad sleeper years ago because of the stress and workplace environment. I changed a lot of things to improve my sleep habits and always get nervous when I have a problem again. My biggest question is, what's the most important routine to ensure a good night's sleep?
For one, people that are prone to insomnia will develop insomnia at stressful times in their life. They have more of a tendency to do so. So anticipate that if there's a stressful period coming up ahead, that your sleep might suffer. For most people, the most important routine really is regularity, which means if you train your brain and your mind to fall asleep at a certain time, even at stressful times, it will still try to maintain that tendency, which means it may not necessarily be able to fall asleep like you always do, but it will at least adhere to that routine if nothing else. Now, if it gets overwhelming, which means you're still not able to sleep, temporary over-the-counter sleep aids can help. But if you're facing this problem chronically and these episodes of poor sleep are becoming more frequent as against, just once in a while, consider that this may have to do with an underlying anxiety disorder. That's really the most common cause of not being able to fall asleep. And treating anxiety will actually help you maintain your defenses against these stressful situations that are thrown at you all the time. And not just that, it'll help you with sleep to some extent, but it'll also help you maintain your equanimity in the day. So consider looking at that as a cause.
Brandon writes on our YouTube channel, I personally love to sleep in, but know that keeping to a consistent wake-up schedule is important. How much leeway is there to sleeping in before it becomes detrimental?
Well, sleeping in might mean two things. This might mean either that you're needing more sleep than other individuals, which needing more than 9-ish hours of sleep is actually considered pathological and does require investigation. Why is someone requiring as much sleep? The other reason people sleep in is if they're what we call night owls, which means they're people who like to go to bed, late and wake up late, and that's just a genetic tendency. So that is, for the most part, harmless. It's called a delayed sleep phase, unless you're fighting that phase because you have to get to work at 6 a.m. and you're a night owl. So in that case, you might be able to slowly advance your sleep phase over time, usually no more than a couple of hours, using early morning sunlight and melatonin at night. There's no such thing as a harmful sleep-in, frankly, as long as it aligns with your social life, and if you're able to get your 8 hours of sleep, great. But if you're needing excess sleep, that's a problem.
Laura sent a text message to 713-440-8870. You can do the same. Laura asks, what is the gold standard ambulatory sleep study? Will you discuss double jaw surgery in relation to sleep apnea? What data are they using, and what is your opinion?
So I think the question is twofold. What is gold standard ambulatory sleep testing? There is none. Gold standard sleep testing is in fact in-lab polysomnography, and every sleep ambulatory testing system that comes out has to publish some kind of validity data comparing it to in-lab sleep studies. So the validity data for most of these are usually well over 90 to 95% in terms of many metrics, like how often do they measure sleep duration correctly, how often do they measure what the degree of sleep apnea is. But one thing to remember is that home sleep testing at this stage is best indicated only for obstructive sleep apnea and no other sleep disorder. As far as double jaw surgery, I'm assuming this is what we technically call maxillomandibular advancement, which means the jaw is moved sort of en bloc, both the upper and the lower jaw, after in fact breaking it at its attachment to the skull. So if you can judge from the description, this is a pretty invested surgery. It takes a lot of resources. It is done when patients cannot tolerate CPAP at all and was more prevalent before. The data for this is that it does work. It provides about 50 to 60% relief depending on how severe the sleep apnea is. These days, it's being performed less and less, again, because we have other alternatives. Frankly, for me, it would be the very last resort for treatment of sleep apnea, if we have tried everything else.
Joseph's in the Heights. He asks, what's the relationship between sleep disorders and obesity? And can new GLP-1 medications be used as a major intervention for sleep disorders?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the indications for GLP-1 agonists from a very large-scale study performed at the end of 2024 leading to its approval for sleep apnea is actually sleep apnea that is, with or without CPAP, that is associated with obesity, provided the patient maintains a diet and exercise regime. And, GLP-1 agonists are frankly everywhere, and questions abound about their efficacy. Their access, which is actually, through insurance, it is quite tricky. But yes, they do work. Obesity in many people is the main underlying feature behind obstructive sleep apnea. For some others, where obesity is not involved, it has to do with jaw structure and how they're made. Now, for those people, clearly GLP-1 agonists are not very effective. But it is absolutely indicated for moderate to severe sleep apnea, especially in obese patients, provided, again, it's accompanied by diet and exercise.
I alluded to earlier how a good night's sleep consistently, that is crucial to your health. Well, the flip side is true too, isn't it? That if you are in poor health, it will disrupt your sleep.
Yes, of course. The relationship is so intertwined. Again, if, for example, obesity itself can make sleep worse because it can cause sleep apnea. However, if you don't sleep well, then you disrupt your hormonal system, you change the steroid axis, which then causes you to gain more weight, which in turn can make your sleep worse and kind of keep going in this cycle. So to break that cycle, we talk to our patients about treating sleep apnea aggressively. If they're obese, getting on a diet and exercise regimen, and if needed on medication to lose that weight, where if obesity is the main underlying reason behind sleep apnea, maybe it'll go away after you lose that weight. So understanding that you have to break this ever-perpetuating cycle somewhere, making that commitment will go a long way towards getting better.
George is in Dickinson. George, what's your question for Dr. Tallavajhula?
Good morning. I really appreciate this. What it is I was diagnosed with sleep apnea probably about 10 years ago, and I was at 280 pounds at 5'11". Well, it was like night and day once I got into getting used to my, my machine. The thing is happening now is I've lost quite a bit of weight through keto. I'm down to 222 pounds, but I had prostate cancer. And I went through my prostate cancer with flying colors. It lowered my testosterone dramatically. And I'm on TRT training and therapy now. And I've been doing a lot of resistance training and a lot of cardio. My only problem is I'm 73. I have an enlarged prostate. I could almost get up at like clockwork at 2:33 in the morning and have to go to the bathroom. And when I come back, it's very difficult to get back to sleep. And I've tried different things like stop drinking fluids 2 hours before and everything. My whole problem is just trying to get back to sleep.
All right. So first of all, before you respond, I just want to say congratulations on the weight loss. That's impressive, and glad to hear you've navigated your cancer journey well too. Dr. Tallavajhula, any advice for George?
Well, I actually appreciate that comment a lot, George, about CPAP changing your life. in many cases, people are afraid to come into the sleep clinic because they're afraid of getting stuck, quote unquote, with the mask. But for many people, once you get used to CPAP, it can really be life-changing. What you're talking about is actually a perfect illustration of how health problems can impact sleep. For example, having to use the bathroom multiple times, either because of a prostate issue or because of diabetes or some other medical condition, can impact your sleep and cause you to wake up multiple times. Acid reflux is another example. So how do you navigate this? Well, you're under the care of a urologist, and hopefully you've talked to them about the prostate issue and the need to go to the bathroom multiple times. As far as what do you do when you come back and you're not able to fall asleep, for many people, going back to sleep can be an issue, especially at that time in the morning. We again tell you, sit in a chair, read something boring, create a schedule or a routine of listening to an audiobook that could put you to sleep. Get in your bed again only when you're ready to go to sleep. If that doesn't work, then using a sleep aid, a short-acting sleep aid, just enough to help you fall asleep again, is actually an option once you have tried all the conservative measures. And for that, a physician can absolutely help you.
Good luck, George. We appreciate the call. On YouTube, question, is it true that the older you get, the less you sleep?
To some extent. What I mean by that is that as you get older, there are other health issues that impact your sleep, just as we were talking about before, and that might lead to less sleep than usual. It's not necessarily that your sleep requirement becomes less, but the fact is that you have other issues that might impact your sleep more than anything else. Our awareness of sleep aging is actually expanding more and more as we study sleep, again, with longitudinal home-based devices, etc. One of the very common sleep disorders that we're actually recruiting now for clinical trials is REM sleep behavior disorder, which is where people, middle-aged male disease, where people get up shouting, acting out their dreams, which is somewhat a precursor to dementia, for example. Now, the only reason I bring this up in the context of needing less and less sleep is that the cortex, the brain's outer layer, the basal ganglia, which is the small little gray matter gray matter collections in the middle of the brain, all of these change with time. And as we start to lose brain cells, some of those structures that generate sleep also degenerate. And which means this impacts sleep directly both in terms of quantity, quality, what we call the architecture of sleep, which means how much REM sleep do you get, how much non-REM, and how much deep sleep. But overall, it doesn't mean that your sleep requirement should become less. If you wake up and you still don't feel refreshed, that's an indicator of poor sleep. You can just attribute it to age many times.
Text from the 281, I have been diagnosed with sleep apnea and use a CPAP machine. I still feel groggy in the afternoon. Does the machine setting need adjustment, and who would need to make those changes?
If it hasn't been looked at in some time, then absolutely the CPAP machine should be monitored, usually at least once a year by a sleep medicine physician or some kind of sleep medicine provider. One of the most common reasons for afternoon grogginess is the quantity of sleep. I always emphasize to our patients that we can help you with the quality of sleep. The sleep apnea help you breathe better. But if you're getting less sleep than what you need, then that will definitely predispose to having more sleepiness in the day. One of the other common reasons is not replacing your CPAP supplies. The machine itself doesn't usually need to be replaced. It's usually every 5 to 8 years. But everything else, the mask, the hose, the filters, all of those things need to be replaced every 3 to 6 months because they cause leaks that might cause you to lose some pressure and therefore feel groggy. And then there are some patients who, despite having enough quality and quantity of sleep with CPAP, continue to be sleepy because over time, again, we lose those brain cells that keep us awake. And for those patients, medications can actually help you and are indicated. So it would be important to seek the attention of a sleep medicine provider before you figure out which of those is your issues.
To wrap up, we often hear, well, you need to get 7 quality hours of sleep a night or 8 quality hours of sleep a night. And ideally, there probably is some rough range magic number, but is it different for different people? There are people who live long, healthy lives who only get 4 or 5 hours sleep a night, and then there are others who sleep 9 or 10 or 11 hours a day. Is it different for each person?
it is very different for each person. Most often it's governed by genetics. The sort of ideal magic number, if you will, is somewhere between 7 to 9 hours for a healthy adult. That's the consensus. Now, having said that, there is a very small population of people called the genetic short sleepers who actually don't have any detrimental consequences from sleeping only 4 to 5 hours. Again, this is a very small population of people. For many others, and unfortunately, in my own profession included, I can get away with 4 hours of sleep is often a concerning finding, because in your 40s to 50s, you start to feel that backlog hitting you.
Yeah.
The sleep debt builds up, and then it really manifests itself in all kinds of ways, either falling asleep at the wheel, on the job, mental fog, unfortunate early onset dementia. So for many people, it's very hard to imagine that you would go without consequences on short sleep.
It's kind of an odd brag, too, to be honest. Like
it is.
Like who are you impressing by saying that? I don't know. But can those who only sleep 4 or 5 hours, can they make it up with afternoon naps? Is that good?
So, the sort of usual paradigm is make up sleep is better than no sleep.
Right.
Right. Even if you catch up on the weekends. Although the best thing is regular sleep. I mean, for many, maybe it's not achievable with work-life situations. But catching up will absolutely help to some extent.
Ideally, going to sleep the same time each night, getting up roughly the same time each morning. Yep. Your body is asking you to do that if at all possible.
If at all possible. I guess at the end of it, listen to your body. If it's telling you something, do not deny it.
Dr. Sudha Tallavajhula is an MD, neurologist, and sleep expert with the UT Health and Memorial Hermann. As always, thank you. It's a pleasure, Dr. Tallavajhula. Thanks for helping out Houstonians to get more rest at night.
It's my pleasure, Craig. Thank you for having me.
Good night, sweet baby. The world has more for you than it seems.
Support for Houston Public Media.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Offering customers electricity plans that match their energy use schedules and lifestyles. All plans come with 100% renewable energy. Details at chariotenergy.com.
Support comes from Asia Society Texas, presenting Vion Sora Outer Worlds, a new exhibition featuring Sora's large-scale abstract paintings reflecting her experience living in Iraq. On view now, asiasociety.org/Texas.
Do you need police, fire, or EMS?
I need everything, sir. My house is so flooded.
We're up on the second floor now. My house is underwater.
Emergency calls received in the middle of the night 1 year ago in Kerrville amid devastating flooding in Texas Hill Country, in which at least 138 people died. That night and the year that's followed are chronicled in a new podcast, a collaboration of the Texas Newsroom and PBS Frontline. Here to tell us more about it are two Houston Public Media reporters who are part of the team behind it, Dominic Anthony Walsh and Sarah Grunau. Dominic, Sarah, good morning.
Good morning.
Dominic, let me start with you. What is After the Flood all about?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a 5-episode podcast, really kind of chronicling a few people's arcs over the past year. We meet, for example, in the first episode, Matthew Childress, the father of Chloe Childress, who was a counselor at Camp Mystic, one of 27 girls who were swept away on July 4th. And we also follow locals and residents who live there. And with all of them, we really try to follow their various arcs over the course of the year. Matthew is really one of the kind of core voices of the show. And in his case, we follow his kind of journey from a grieving parent into a successful advocate for new camp safety laws, along with other Camp Mystic parents. And we also have a lot of accountability questions with those new state laws and local changes in Kerr County. Is the area really more prepared for another flood than it was a year ago?
Sarah, why is it, in your view, important to tell a story like this and focus on what has happened in the years since, particularly to these individuals?
Yeah, so I think for a lot of the reporting that we're doing on this, there's still a lot of unanswered questions that we have about the flood, the responsibility of top government officials in the area and what their roles were that morning. There's a new emergency management coordinator for Kerr County, for example, that has sort of taken over the responsibility of being prepared and ready to react for any future disaster. You'll hear a lot of that later in the show, and there's a new flood warning system that's been installed along the river that we have raised some questions about as well. So that's something you'll hear more later in the episode in the show as well.
What are your respective roles with this project?
So I was the lead reporter, and I'm hosting 5 of the episodes. Sarah, though, jumps into episode 5 with a lot of the accountability questions.
Yeah. In episode 1 as well, you'll hear from Jake Richards. I met him last year. In Kerrville, Jake and his wife, Julia, had been living in Blue Oak RV Park on the river when the flood came in. They were safe, but their RV had been washed away with all of their belongings. And their story is, just one of many of people who had been living and vacationing in mobile homes along the river. And that's something that we'll get into later, more in the show.
Dominic, how is Houston Public Media collaborating with other Texas stations on this project?
Yeah, so listeners are probably familiar with the Texas Newsroom. We hear statewide newscasts from this entity throughout the day. And the Texas Newsroom is a collaboration among NPR, Houston Public Media, Texas Public Radio in San Antonio, KUT in Austin, and KERA in North Texas. So all those stations have contributed something to this podcast, whether reporting or production or editing. And then PBS Frontline has also been involved. They've provided editorial and financial support.
All right, Sarah, where can you access this?
Wherever you get your podcast. Is that right?
That's right.
Apple Podcast, online at houstonpublicmedia.org as well. You'll be able to see sort of a landing page for the podcast as well. So, that's, I guess, wherever you get your podcast.
And we're also sharing highlights on air over the course of the week. Where and when?
Yeah, so folks can expect every Wednesday as the episodes come out between now and July 22nd to hear excerpts on Morning Edition and All Things Considered. And then Here and Now from NPR will air an excerpt tomorrow. All Things Considered from NPR will air one sometime next week. So really every Wednesday, but also a few other days between now and July 22nd.
Yeah, and the two of you will be back here each Thursday to give us some details on upcoming episodes. Very briefly, though, what's the first episode about?
It's about the day of. So what actually happened in those early morning hours and throughout the morning, afternoon, and evening of July 4th.
Yeah, you'll hear a lot from people that were there living through the flood last year. And then, these are folks that reporters at the Texas Newsroom also talked to immediately after the flood and during the aftermath.
So just look for After the Flood in your podcast feed to hear the whole thing. Dominic, Anthony Walsh, and Sarah Grunau are reporters for Houston Public Media and part of the team behind After the Flood. Again, it's a short-run podcast series from the Texas Newsroom, a collaboration of public media stations in Texas, including Houston Public Media, as well as PBS's Frontline. Dominic, Sarah, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And that will do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, Mincho Jacob, and Laura Walker. Jared Carroll's our technical director. On tomorrow's show, we will mark an anniversary for a few key landmark Supreme Court rulings impacting gay rights. Lawrence v. Texas in 2003, the 2013 striking down of the so-called Defense of Marriage Act, and in 2015, Obergefell v. Hodges, in which the High Court ruled same-sex couples had a constitutional right to marriage under the 14th Amendment. By the way, there have been a few Supreme Court decisions released just in the last hour. We're going to have details for you about them coming up in our NPR newscast in about 3 minutes, so stick around for that. Also on tomorrow's show, we contemplate intrigues in the news as we do each Friday on the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we will preview the Ensemble Theater's production of Get Ready, which explores the impact shifts in popular music had on black musicians starting in the 1950s. I'm Craig Cohen. Join us tomorrow for those and other Houston Matters.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Metro, proud sponsor of Hello Houston with Ernie Manous. Heard Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. on News 88.7.